I don't have that bill increase. So it's fantastic.
Oh, I do it all the time, anyhow, and have not normal for me, no.
Right.
And it isn't like I can sit in the car for 4 or 5 hours and not have to go watch TV for much, and all of a sudden.
That was one, that's what I was saying, weight loss would be something like that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wasn't trying to lose it. Now I'm trying to maintain that lower weight.
Yeah.
Then I gotta tell you, whenever I find one of
Try to maintain that lower weight.
Criteria.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Something like that, it's usually something,
I want
could
to
be.
try to maintain it. Thanks for asking.
I don't want to lay down, you know, for fear of you. Okay, respect. Yep.
not quite, 1 minute.
What you say now?
Larry's passing those out.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. This is the work session of City Council, April 15, 2024. First item is review of the minutes. If anybody has any comments today, we'd be happy to take them. If you think you can bring it up next week, okay? That's the minutes, of course, of the March meeting. It's not on the agenda, but I did want to mention that the financials were sent out to council today for the end of February. And they look very similar to last year. City sales tax is up. County sales tax is up. Total operating revenue is up 10.5% for the first 2 months of the year compared to last year. And the expenses so far are running quite a bit below budget. So, looks like $443,000 below budget. So, we're off to a good start, I'd say, so far. But you can study those over and let me know next week.
Quick question.
Yeah.
And I actually came in to see Kim today, but one thing I noticed after I got home is the franchise fees are up considerable. Is that just a pacing thing? Or does that come in pretty consistent month over month? Is Kim in here?
I'm here. I'm sorry, Kim.
The franchise fees, I noticed are, you know, pretty significant year to date. Is that just a pacing thing?
Yes, let me just say this, you know, Carroll Electric did a rate increase, and when they do a rate increase, our franchise fee goes up.
So,
Good question.
let's go ahead. Yeah, we saw a few aberrations on there. The first couple of months, the property tax revenues are way lower than last year. And it must be timing how the county's doing it. We noticed they made up for it in March. So we're going to be back on schedule. So our revenues are up even with the property tax being way off. So that's good. Now, continuing on with the agenda, I want to skip ahead to item H. It is on the financial side. It's a resolution amending the 2024 budget to recognize and appropriate development impact fee revenue and authorize expenses for the library and police department. Kim, could you say a few words about that?
Yes, you have seen these numbers in January. We were doing a resolution in January for this, but when I reviewed the resolution, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. So we're what would you say, not amending the resolution, we're doing it directly for these expenses. So this will be incorporated in the resolution.
But these are all things that are covered by the impact fee. And if you look at the attachment on item H, it attachment behind item H, it shows what they are. It's for the police department and for some things the fire department, or the library was ordering.
These were all expenses that we discussed in January. There's no change in the expenses. The only change is that we're doing a resolution specifically for those expenses. That's all that we're doing.
Rather than allowing all of the money collected in that account to be available.
Right, and with impact fees, each group of expenditures has to be approved by the city. So you basically set up a mini budget for the use of those franchise fees. Because they can only be used for certain purposes, so that's why they require your approval. And the resolution wasn't exactly what I was thinking it should be, and so I talked to Jason and he agreed, let's just fix it so it's tidy. I don't know what else to say, I like it to be tidy with the exact expenses that are going through. And there's no revenue here. I think the title of this says something about recognizing revenue. No, we're just recognizing the expenses.
Any questions for Kim? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kim. Let's forward ahead with the regular agenda. Item A is an ordinance requiring candidates for election to any municipal office in the city of Bella Vista, in addition to any other requirements of state law, to file campaign contribution expenditure reports with the Bella Vista city clerk in sufficient time for voters to make use of such information prior to the beginning of early voting and for other purposes. And this is on third reading.
Let me give you an update just before you all start talking about it. I checked today, this afternoon, the AG has still not rendered any kind of an opinion on this issue.
That's my question.
So, that's all I want to say.
Mindy McCallendon did send, I think it was a text to Doug and I saying that she talked to the Attorney General. She had the feeling he was going to render opinion fairly soon.
Yeah, I don't personally have any further comment about it now. There's been a lot of conversation, discussion about it. So, rather than spend time on it tonight, I'm going to wait until next Monday. I do have further comments to make, but I'm going to hold on to them until then. And that refers both to item A and B in orders. It's okay, the resolution as well.
Okay. Yeah, the resolution B is the one expressing the opinion of the City Council that citizens should be highly vigilant about the influence of partisan and special interest group campaign contributions. So the two of them are somewhat related, I guess you'd say. Yeah. Okay, next one is new business and ordinance amending section 10940 zoning ordinance amendment of code of ordinances, City of Bella Vista, to modify notice requirements related to planning commission initiated zoning amendments and for other purposes. Taylor, did you want to give an explanation of this?
Sure. I was doing some research in preparation for our zoning reform that we are currently under right now. We are currently reviewing the zoning code. We're in phase 2. And part of that is in preparation for the amendments and changes in public hearings that we're going to have this fall, winter, and then some. To notify the public, it seems like our code requires a very stringent process to notify the public, a lot more than nearby cities and the state statutes and things like that. It requires us to pay a lot more for our legal ads than other cities do. We have really expensive legal ads because of what our code currently requires to be put in them, because it's so many cents per word. So we are making huge public hearing ads. I don't know how many people actually check the public hearing section of the Weekly Vista, but if you go, you just see words down the whole Weekly Vista page that are public hearings, because we have to legally describe the property question, which is a lot of words, which means a lot of money. So staff is proposing with the support of the mayor and with the recommendation of the Planning Commission to reduce the cost of that to save some money on what we're legally required to do, because this isn't something that we have the choice of doing. The state statutes already require that we notify the public of public hearings on development ordinances, rezones, things like that. It's just we have to pay a lot more than other cities, so we're hoping to streamline that and save some money on the city side by reducing that, but still complying with state statutes, everything else.
Did the planning commission agree on this?
Correct, they recommended approval. No one showed up for the public hearing. I've still not received any public comments on this. I don't have anything further to add than that.
It's really a question, an issue of us putting an expensive burden on ourselves that the state does not require us to do.
Correct.
And we're just wanting to do what the state requires us to do, which is full notice, don't get me wrong, but save a lot of effort and time and such as well.
Oh, plus our neighboring communities don't do that, right? Bentonville and Centerton, I think.
I don't think so, but I'd have to rely on some.
Yeah, Bentonville, Centerton, I listed the cities in there that just follow state statutes. This one's actually pulled directly from Bentonville's, this amendment, so we'd be very aligned with our adjacent neighbor.
Oh, Larry, did you have something you wanted to add?
I guess I was a little bit confused, and maybe I misinterpreted what the request was. It seemed to me that on city-initiated rezonings, that this would be the protocol that we would use,
Correct.
but on owner-initiated, you would go through the standard protocols that we've done in the past.
So rezone applications specifically as an example,
Yes.
yes, they would follow the typical protocol, which is pretty standard everywhere. Everyone within 200 feet gets certified mail or petition, the legal ad that staff does, and then the staff also posts a public hearing sign in the front yard. State statutes require city-initiated rezones to publish a notice in the paper of notifying the date, time, and public hearing, and not the legal description or any of that. As well as we have to notify all the school boards now. That's a new state statute, so we do send a letter to all the school boards. We have 3 of them here. Every time we have a zoning or development ordinance or rezone, things like that. So we will still be doing that, still publishing on the website. We're just consolidating it and basically keeping a nice map on site, basically, probably at CVS City Hall on our website, rather than all of the items we're doing right now.
I've proposed an amendment to this in the, to clarify the posting. Currently it says, a map indicating proposed changes shall be available in the mayor's office or at a convenient location designated by the mayor. My thinking is that we do have designated posting locations in the city, or a location.
Larry, I don't think that we do. There's a bulletin board out front of the city hall.
Right, yeah.
That's our bulletin board. But we don't have designated posting locations.
Not any longer, but that is one that you post at. So it's a designated location. No.
We don't post everything on it. No,
Oh, you're
not. No. Cassie can talk a little bit more about that bulletin board out front. You know how that gets handled?
As far as I know, it's just the agendas get put out there, Wendy puts them out there.
There's 3 or 4 or 5 designated posting locations around the city. One was at City Hall, and the rest of them were designated public places. Might be a bank, might be a grocery store. But that was up until 18 or 19, 2018, 2019. I don't know if it's changed after that or not. So. And so my amendment would be, instead of at a convenient location designated by the mayor, my proposal is, and at the city's designated posting locations, thinking we still had those. And if not, it would be the city hall posting location.
Well, plus the existing proposal says or, and your amendment says
So,
and.
you would make
Makes
it
it
available
more
to you.
burdensome.
Yeah. Make it available to you and put one out on that city side.
following the original proposal cover us legally with the or?
Yes.
that-
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So Taylor, is this just basically a map similar to what we get in our packets for us to view?
None of that will change. That'll all be the exact
No,
same.
I mean the map that'll be posted.
The map that will be posted, yes, it'll be either the specific lot, or if there's multiple, it'll be a little bit bigger. But yeah, it'll be either exactly what you get already on the staff report that's already published to the public, or when we have mass rezones or larger rezones, we get a bigger map that are unique identifiers on it.
So, why don't we head to the next item then, if everybody's done. B is an ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing a contract with Superior Automotive Group in amount not to exceed $120,000 for the purchase of 2 2024 Chevrolet Tahoe police vehicles for use by the police department. Chief, would like to say a few words.
This is just two of the vehicles out of the ones we were allotted in our capital budget for 2024. The Chevy Tahoe still is not on a Arkansas competitive bid sheet. It's just nobody listed. They're just not doing it. Well, some other police vehicles are ending up on the bid, on the Arkansas bid sheet. So we were asking for the standard bid waiver that we've been doing for the past several years since this has been a problem. Using Superior Automotive at a very competitive price. We keep track of his price compared to other people's prices, and it's competitive, plus they have the stock of what we need in stock, and he holds it for us when we're ready for it. So
And this is in the budget?
it is in the budget, yeah, it was in the capital budget for 2024.
Why 2 Tahoes and 4 Durangos, why not 6 Durangos?
Okay, so the Durango, because we try to get, the Durangos we've never used before, so this is the first year we're actually pushing out the police Durango as a patrol model, so we're not fully well, I don't want to say confident, we don't know how to perform yet, so we want to get it out in the fleet first to see how it performs. Plus some of the Tahoes are used as command vehicles, plus some of the Tahoes are used in the field as supervisory vehicles, so we'd like to keep a mixed fleet of 2 different platforms, and right now those platforms moving into the future will likely be, if the Durango works out, it'll be the Dodge Durango, primarily because it's less expensive, and it's a smaller platform. So for patrol, it'll be a better model overall, we think, and then mixed in with some Tahoes in the fleet. So
Durango police package.
yes.
Explorer doesn't do that yet.
They do, but what happens, we went with Explorers a few years back when they were like the older size of the Durango Explorer. And you'll see we still have a few in the fleet. So the first year I got several of those with the same idea at the time of doing Explorers and Chargers, okay? And then the first year I got a bunch of Explorers, Ford decided to change the Explorer platform and make them more like a Tahoe. So now the Explorer is about the size of a Tahoe, plus it costs about what a Tahoe does. So it doesn't do for us what we were hoping.
It's actually smaller. I got one.
No, it is smaller, but it's bigger than it was.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the Durango, and the price-wise is almost near the Tahoe.
Yep. Okay.
And so that's why I decided to try the Durango.
So really the Durango's replacing the Charger because they stopped doing the Charger.
Because the Charger, yeah, they stopped doing all-wheel drive V8 Chargers, and we want to stick with V8 because we did the V6 before, and they just don't last with the way the police department uses them. And then we wanted all-wheel drive because ice and everything, and so they went away from that, and now they're going away totally from the Dodge Charger. They're going to have V6 2-wheel drive, I believe, and so it doesn't work for us. So we're trying the Durango now.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll head on then. There's a few items look like they're in your bailiwick here, right? Next one is approving body worn camera and in-car camera policies for the police department.
So this is in conjunction with, in the capital budget for the next 5 years, the police department, the city council approved the Axon body worn camera plus in-car camera system for the police department, moving away from WatchGuard, which is sort of defunct. And so this is just a policy we need in place before we implement that. So we purchased the cameras this year. We're starting to implement the program though before we issue them out. we have to have a policy in place, and so this policy is for both the in-car camera and body-worn camera. Two separate policies. We thought it would work better with two separate policies. I've sent them through legal. They've been vetted and looked at, and so we believe this is a good policy. This is a policy we didn't invent it ourselves. I believe we took it from maybe Rogers or Fayetteville, but one of those, Fayetteville does use Axon, so we instead of reinventing the wheel, we try to find a policy that's already at work, and we try to massage it to our specific needs, and so that's where it comes from.
When you say you massage it, because that's what I was going to ask, if you use, someone else's that had already put one together, which makes a lot of sense, obviously. When you say you massage it, is there anything you change specifically?
Not the big things, not the big things. And really, in this case, I don't think much of anything except going in there and replacing, like, if it was Fayetteville with Bella Vista and things like that. So, but as far as the meat and potatoes, no. I told my folks, find an existing policy, make it our policy in that, make it fit us, and then I review it and read it, make sure it covers everything. I don't go back and compare it to the original policy, if that's what you're asking.
That's fine. And then the other thing is automatic trigger, right? They automatically get triggered. I'm just a curiosity question. How does it get automatically? So
the camera gets triggered by certain things, like in a vehicle, for example, when you reach a certain, you could set the system to where the in-car camera, as soon as they flip the lights on, the in-car camera goes off, as well as the body camera would go off at the same time. Or you could exceed a certain speed and you want the camera to trigger. So there's certain triggers you could put on the camera systems, both the body-worn camera and in-car camera, to make them activate, okay?
Like when they hit 90.
When they hit 90, if you set it at 90, it would go off, okay? Yeah, so there's certain things that we want them to go off automatically. The body-worn camera, that's mostly activated manually, okay? There is something in the system where someone else nearby activates theirs manually. All of them within range activate manually, okay? But the cameras are always, just so you know, they're always recording, and so you don't miss anything. So if you activated it, you would still get something that led up to that incident would then be memorialized. But if it's never activated, that just gets overwritten, if that makes sense.
So if the officer's on patrol, maybe when he exits the car, they automatically turn it on?
They would be turned on, plus they would manually, they would manually turn them on as well. But even if they didn't get a chance to turn them on, okay, and they're turned on after the fact, or they're triggered after the incident, like in a shooting, you may not get a chance to turn on your camera, okay? But it would be activated, and then you would catch what led up to the shooting. Like, I believe it's 20 or 30 seconds prior to whatever the trigger event was. So you don't catch audio, but you catch a video, a visual of what led up to the trigger event, okay? So that helps us, because, if the trigger event happens, you don't have time to activate your camera, then you kind of miss what led up to it and what caused the trigger event. Okay, so they're always recording, and they get overwritten if a trigger event doesn't happen. So this is just a policy. Once we get this is part of getting the cameras implemented. The policy, if approved by council next Monday. We're starting some training, I believe, next week for all the officers on the body-worn and in-car camera system. They'll start to be issued out next month, and the cameras will start to be installed in cars, I believe, the second week in May as well. And that process will take probably a good month or so to get everything done. As officers get issued cameras and their cars get cameras, they'll go out with the cameras. We will have, for a period of time, because there's still some watch guard cameras out there, we'll have a couple systems out there for a period of time. But, more is better, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll keep WatchGuard running until we get all of Axon online.
Chief, I didn't ask you this before, but we have redacting software, is that correct? Because one of the things that happens is that we can expect to have more public information requests to look at.
Yep.
And so there are all these things that are on the video which are not disclosable, like the data on the computer next to the officer. How does that? Is that going to be?
Yeah, so that was a part of getting this. It took me a while to get this system in place. I mean, years, because we wanted to get the building in first. This is a big event, and I needed a body specifically for this system. So I actually have an officer who's been in place. He's put sort of overseeing records, but his primary function is the Axon system, getting it online right now, and then one of his primary functions will be working the redaction software for that, because we will get a lot more FOIAs, references, sort of stuff. And then his job will be to go through, if somebody FOIAs, you know, I want all your video for X. I mean, that's a pretty big thing sometimes. That could be hundreds of hours at times of recordings that we have to go through. But we do have redaction software that we bought as part of the program to make it easy as we can, where he'll be able to go through and redact, like Jason said, certain things. If you go into someone's house and it's a privacy thing, or if there's juveniles in the video, you have to redact just like you would with a black Sharpie on paper. You have to actually redact them out of the video with this software. So it's a big process, and it's labor intensive. But other agencies do it, so it's just a matter of getting there. But we do have an individual in place to do all the redactions.
Can the request, FOIA request be limited, like say for a person that asked for all the video for the past 2 years? Can that request be limited?
No, not really. I mean, unless it's otherwise exempted pursuant to the FOI, but it's just like today. Someone, now that I say that, someone could walk into our office and say, I want to see every piece of paper that the city of Bella Vista ever created. That's a lawful request. And it may, you know, we have a certain amount of time in which to respond, but there is no, that I'm aware of as we speak, I don't think there's a special time frame or limitation on these police-related worn cameras. They're police records, like other police records, and would be handled in the same way.
Can we charge for the service? That's what I was
Well, actual costs,
Yeah, that's what I mean, just,
but I don't know how you go about calculating that, not including labor, because it's really all about the labor.
You can't charge the labor?
No.
You could charge for like reason what it costs.
If they, we could charge them for the thumb drive we put it on.
You can't charge them for labor, and that's the expensive part. It's just something we end up, it's just part of business.
This is one of the things, it's not just us, this is nationwide, and it's Arkansas in particular, of the impact of the body-worn cameras on information requests and the burden that is on the various IT departments around city governments and local governments, police departments. It is known that it is quite a job, and yet we're still expected to comply.
There are people that make a living at this. If you go to YouTube, and there used to be the show Cops, and it's still around, but if you go to YouTube, there's people on there that make money. All they do is they FOIA high-speed chases and just low-frequency, high-risk events from big agencies, and then they make little movies out of them, and they make money. And you go to YouTube right now, and you can find a dozen of those.
I can't imagine how many the state police do, because there are several channels
Yeah.
of Arkansas State Police that just post the high-speed highway chases and the result, and all of that. There are dozens of them.
Luckily, we're relatively peaceful, and we're surrounded by bigger agencies, so, you know, well, too late now. But, you know, so people mostly leave us alone, but, you know, it's just part of doing business. Okay.
That'll be our new city motto, Bella Vista, we're under the radar.
Well, I'll tell you the way I think about it, but as the prosecutor, we already provided, we do a lot of work just to provide data from the cameras that we have that are in the car. We're going to have a lot more of that now, because the officer is going to walk up to the car. If the video got triggered, we're going to be able to see the eyes of the driver who's intoxicated. There's a lot more evidence that's going to be generated in criminal prosecutions because of this too.
Don't take a negative away from this. This is a really net positive. It ultimately, you know, it saves officers like it because it backs them up. It saves us 99 times out of 100 before it hurts us. So it's really, and if we have a problem out there, we want to know anyways. And so
Keeps everyone honest.
It keeps everyone honest, and if we do have a problem, then we're able to identify it and take care of it a lot quicker. So it's a good thing.
Thank you. The next one is item D, approving an organizational structured chain of command policy for the police department.
Yeah, this is just another policy. We were going through policies and, you know, realizing we may have had a little bit of we had some policies talking about chain of command, but we never had clearly defined it in a policy. And and decided we just really needed to clearly define it within it's a standalone policy. That's all this is, just identifying or clearly defining what a chain of command is and how individuals within the organization will use their chain of command.
This is actually a new policy.
This is a new policy. Chain of command was mentioned in several other policies throughout our policy manual, but we did not have a standalone, this is what chain of command is, this is its definition, this is how it will be used, and this is how you will use it.
I noticed that, I believe she's a corporal now. Evans was, I think, Miss Lyons,
I'm sorry?
Haley Lyons.
Yes.
Is that a recent change or promotion?
To corporal? She's been a corporal for a while.
I mean, public information officer.
Oh, no, that to a move to there, probably about, I think I did that sometime last year.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Will you need to amend the ordinances that make references to
No.
this?
No, because they just talk about chain of command, but they just don't define it. They just say, in this scenario, you'll go through your chain of command, but nowhere in the manual have we said, this is what a chain of command is. It's one of those things where you don't think you really need to explain it, but then you realize later on, okay, I probably need to explain it because sometimes things happen.
So now it will point to something, actually.
Not necessarily, well, yeah, if somebody reads something and says, go through your chain of command, they're like, what is a chain of command? They could go, oh, here's a policy reference chain of command. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Next one is Resolution E, granting the appeal filed regarding development waiver 2024-53084 at 15 Carroll Ray Lane. Taylor, did you want to say something about this?
Did you want to say anything?
Well, I was
first?
just going to explain. I don't know that you've ever seen one of these before, but our code provides that there are certain development requirements that can be waived by the planning commission. And this was one of those applications. The planning commission denied that waiver. And so the ordinance, or our code of ordinances says if that happens, then they have a right to appeal that decision to the city council. And so that is what you have here. They have appealed the denial of a development waiver related to this application at this address. And that's where I'll let Taylor take over.
Okay, we haven't had one in a really long time. So I think this is the first one since I've been here, at least in the last 4+ years, that we've had a waiver appeal go to City Council. This is over the subdivision development regulation regarding driveway grades, which is currently set at 12% max with an administrative variance up to 14%. They requested 17%, which means it's more than 14%, so it had to go to Planning Commission via a traditional waiver request. There are 4 requirements that the Planning Commission must find true to find all of them true before they can grant a waiver. They could not find all 4, so they denied this waiver request, and so the applicant has appealed that decision here. The provided plot plan in the Planning Commission packet, which is what you guys would be considering with this resolution appeal decision, they're showing a 17% grade along the entire driveway. However, towards the edge of street, our engineer calculated over a 30% grade from edge of street into their private property. So basically what was happening is the plan that they are appealing to you tonight was not showing the true proposed contours, if that makes sense. They're labeling them as 17%, but the plot plan designer was not showing how those contours were tying into the existing. And so our engineer did that and found it was over 30%, so the request of 17% was not true, if that makes sense. They were requesting 17%, but they were not showing 17%. The applicant is here tonight if you guys have questions for them. I did want to note, with their appeal letter, they turned in a new application, which is not under consideration tonight. It is just additional information that's in your packet that does show true proposed contours that are connected to existing, and it does show a 17% grade all the way from edge of street to the house, which of course, as you know, via the new ordinance that we amended, it goes live in June, that will be something that our staff can consider internally as 17%.
One thing I want to add is they cannot, this is an appeal from the application they previously filed. So if they wanted to file a different request, that would have had to be a start over, basically, go back and then go that, the planning commission would have a chance at that. So you are reviewing whether or not the application which was denied should be granted. And I would also add, because the ordinance says what factors you look at in determining that, you are bound by that just as much as the planning commission is. So you are bound by those criteria as well.
So we're deciding under the old ordinance, basically, and my understanding is the new ordinance becomes effective June 3rd.
Take some word on that, on
Yeah.
that publication date.
So how many days into this old application is the applicant? I mean, like 60 days, 90 days, I mean, where are they at in the mix?
So this is just a waiver application. Last I checked, the GEC building application, nothing's been applied for yet. This is a house that has not started.
Okay.
They're still in the planning phases.
Okay.
This isn't a house that's sitting or anything like that.
If the 2020 rule was in effect now, would this waiver be required?
As the waiver that you guys are considering right now, yes, because of Edge of Street, the plot plan shows over a 30% grade, which is more than the 17% downhill that you guys just approved.
But they submitted
A new plan that you guys are not considering tonight. You are only considering the plot plan that the planning commission did.
Wait a minute, so
Don't they need to just take their new application back to the planning commission and not appeal this one?
Well,
If
they
they want to do
haven't-
something different?
I've not received an application yet, just that plot plan that showed up with the appeal letter to our city clerk.
That would appear to be a much more successful route. But
That's kind of what I was seeing.
Can we allow the applicant?
And the applicants are here.
So I can reapply, is that what you're saying?
So, depending on which way you go and roll, the 17% that you guys submitted could be considered under the new ordinance, June 3rd, with just a GEC application, not a waiver.
So when we submitted we were told that when it was denied by the planning commission that we would have to appeal to you guys.
Right.
Which is
You are
why we had the plot plan changed. That's why we did all the things, and we didn't understand. So I apologize for that.
Well, you're normal people and not lawyers, so that's totally understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what I'd like to say is we have home builders who would really like to move forward, and we want to do what we can do to further that for them so that they can build the home that they'd like to build.
I can't speak for these people, but
Yeah.
it sounds to me like that you probably would not want to pursue this angle because I don't know that there's grounds for it. But if you have a different application with a different plan, I think the staff would look at that and then, especially since this new requirement's coming into effect soon, probably be able to be a lot more closely able to do something that you would like rather than through this route we're talking about. But I can't speak for anything, I haven't seen anything, don't know whether it would be okay or not.
So, I mean, basically what y'all are considering is what we submitted before and it was denied.
Exactly.
That's all they can consider.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
at the last council meeting, I asked Taylor specifically, if you've got, and I think I may have been referring to this particular location, if you've got 20 foot at the house that is level and access.
Driveway at the garage end?
Right, you got 20 foot there that's level and accessible with a vehicle to the garage, then from there to the street is immaterial.
Go 20 feet.
20 feet from the street. So the street, 20 feet from the street out, that's regulated. From the garage out, or in, it's 20 feet. And that's what we care about. And everything else is
So it's 100 foot long, all we care about is that there's 40, we don't care about the 60 in the middle.
not, I'm gonna let Taylor speak for herself, but I think she's saying that even within that 20 feet, there's too much slope.
What you guys are considering right now, there is a 30% grade from edge of street, which would not.
What we're considering now, but they've resubmitted a new.
But there's a new plot plan.
It's going to be 17.
That meets the new ordinance.
Right,
But we don't know that that is.
But you can't consider that.
right, I understand that, but they could, pull this and resubmit the new one, right?
Is there any possibility, I mean, we're respectfully, to get this done in a timely manner, is there any way that you can vote on an emergency something so that it can go into effect immediately? As you were all in agreement, and so I don't know, like June 3rd
Because the
is.
planning commission has to give you that, either the planning commission or the staff if it's June. But if it's before that, then it would have to be the planning commission. But, no, there's no vote that we could make now to just say what you're wanting to do is okay. There's no mechanism to do that.
And so, okay. And so when would the next opportunity to go in front of the planning commission be?
Well, I'm gonna let you talk to her about that, because I don't know what the schedule is.
We can talk after this.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I can send you an email.
Thank you.
So we'll, this is still on the agenda, and y'all talk, and then if Taylor, if they decide they want to pull this, can you let me know?
Yep.
And if it's before we issue the final agenda, we'll take it off.
And we're sorry for not
No, you're not.
understanding. I'm sorry.
You don't
that
owe any
we
apologies.
just didn't
No worries.
understand the process. so.
No, we don't understand it half the time ourselves. It's okay.
Fair enough.
Well, in their defense, what drives the planning commission crazy is people build things and they want forgiveness. They're actually asking for they build
Right.
it. So they're doing it the right way.
Doing it right.
And then if you do, I mean, if we follow through, just be sure that your driveway meets the specs when it's built, right? And doesn't exceed it, because then that will be a non-starter. right?
And-
I'm just saying, that's the way it'll work, so.
And if you do choose to pull this, do it in writing. If you just, an email would be fine, but we would need to see something right in front of you that you're pulling this old thing and gonna do something else, okay?
Wendy just stated that you got 20 foot at the garage or at the house. You got 20 foot up the street.
Yeah, that's what we passed.
That's what-
That's what the new ordinance says.
And what's in between,
That starts starting in June.
Yeah. The reason that happened was because the planning, we had a great interest in the last 20 feet, we being city council. Because somebody built a couple houses where you couldn't get in the garage.
Yep.
The planning commission had a great interest in the first 20 feet because they were thinking about emergency vehicles being able to get on the property, and also during snowstorms, people, their driveway was slanted, so they were parking on the street, and then the snow plows can't plow the street because there's people in the way. So that's what the planning, so it's two different problems trying to be solved by one ordinance.
But so the initial conversation actually started with your comments on our driveway somewhere that just dropped off the street. That's where it began, right? And so we rushed through more or less an ordinance. I say passed it really quickly on 12 and 14.
right?
And then it was discovered, you know what, in Bella Vista, the 12 and 14 really doesn't work. We need to look at this again. And so we passed the new ordinance in the last meeting, right? Well, if that one wouldn't have passed, and we would be back to 12, 14, and this couple over here would really be in straits. So we're in a lot better position. I'd like to apologize to you guys for being here, but at least we have a solution. So talk to Taylor. We'll try to get it done as quick as we can. Yeah. I'm sorry, John.
Yes, Larry?
I guess the important thing is you submit a plan to build by, and many builders do that, but they don't follow the plan when they finish the project.
Jim does that. He's been building in Bella Vista for 23 years.
And so the plan looks nice when you get it here, but we do check the project before occupancy permits are issued, and they do figure out that, well, the driveway really wasn't built by the plan. It shows up and becomes a problem.
Okay. Next one is the resolution approving the mayor's reappointments of Laura Hofford to position 6 and Mark Pelleton to position 7 on the Tree Advisory Board for 3-year terms ending May 1, 2027. Mark Pelleton, I believe, is the man we put on just a few months ago. And the folks in planning have reported to me that Laura Hofford has been a really great person on the tree board, and I think did work as secretary on it, and has been a big plus for the board. So those are the two people. Any questions about that? Next one is G, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Emery Sapp and Sons, the amount of $111.92 per ton for asphalt street resurfacing hot mix overlay. And further authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Vance Brothers in the amount of $275 per square yard for slurry street resurfacing. Karen, would you like to give a little
Yes, so
explanation?
this is where we put out our annual resurfacing for competitive bid. We do this every year. We bid out hot mix and slurry seal. We did get 4 responses to our bid, 3 of those being for hot mix, 1 being for the slurry seal, which is pretty typical for a year in Bella Vista. These are all of our local players we see year after year. This is a unit price so that we can use our budget to the maximum and get as many streets done as possible. So we are recommending that the city council approve both of those contracts. They're both within our budget. The slurry seal is going to be under our operating budget, and the hot mix will be under our capital budget.
I thought we weren't doing any more slurries.
We quit doing the chip and seal.
Chip
Back
and
in
seal.
2014 was our last year's chip and seal. We've been
Okay.
doing slurries since the city started.
Chip and seal is what we quit doing.
Yes.
I'm just curious, how's this compare to our last bids we got?
They actually came in a little bit lower than what we were expecting. And so we were, because we had to make an estimate on how many roads to put on that list originally, and our expectation was a little bit higher in both categories. So we're going to be able to add some extra linear footage to both of those bids that we placed.
Is this a guaranteed amount?
Yes, this is their bid amount.
Do we have a feel on their timing, when they're going to do it?
No, we have not informed them that city council's awarded the contract yet to get on their
Good point.
schedule. We're expecting it to go through.
Yeah.
Time-wise, what does the contract call for schedule?
We actually have, do you remember the date? I might have it here in the bid specs. We actually have a completion date of September the 15th, just to try to leverage their time here in town, but there are a limited amount of days for each application, with the exception if we add streets, which we do intend on, it'll extend that deadline by a little bit. I can get you the specific number of days.
So as you add additional scope, they get additional time?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
How much is oil a barrel now, you know?
80 something.
So oil jumps to $100 a barrel, it's not going to change, this will stay the same.
Yeah. For this year?
For this year.
Yeah.
This year.
So I know the street folks are pretty pleased the way it came out, because it was below their estimates, and then you can cover a little more ground. Okay, the next one's resolution amending 2024 budget to recognize and appropriate. Oh, that's right, we did H, sorry. Check mark in the wrong place.
Since you have a pause, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I have another question for the street department.
Oh, okay,
Do we have
sorry.
a map somewhere that shows what's going to be done with what?
No, we don't put out one of those this early in the game because things can change. If there's new construction, we might have to pull a street, add a street. Because it's not determined till the very last minute if there's going to be additions or not, we don't put it out there for someone to get their expectations and then us remove that.
It's a planning tool.
Yes,
I mean, you have a map,
we do,
yeah.
We do, but we don't put it out.
public.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Good question. Okay, I, resolution amending resolution number 2024-21, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Superior Automotive Group of Siloam Springs pursuant to a state procurement contract for the purchase of 4 2024 Dodge Durango all-wheel drive pursuit vehicles in an amount not to exceed $170,760 for the police department.
So this was something council approved last month. There was a clerical error on my part. You approved the 4 Durangos last month for a not to exceed of 160. These Durangos are on the state bid. My mistake was I used the wrong number off the state bid, and just to make it a little more simplified, when you go to the state bid contract, you can click on Durango, and it's actually layers deep because there are state bid Durangos for different packages. And I clicked the wrong one, and I didn't go layers deep where I added in the spotlight and the police wiring and things like that we need that we normally get. So the not to exceed number of 160 fell short, and so I couldn't get the 4 Durangos at that price. And so if I would have realized this last month, I would have come to you and said the same thing, but not to exceed the 170, because that'll get me the 4 Durangos at the state bid price for how we need them built out.
You're still going to be able to get those even with the
Yes.
delay?
Yeah, he holds them for us. That's why Superior's so good. He's the only dealership that will actually hold these cars for us. So,
Officers are taking the vehicles home now, right?
yes,
Has for years.
Right.
yes.
But is there any limit on how far?
20 miles.
Huh?
20 miles.
Okay.
20 miles.
Do we have any officers that live more than 20 miles?
I don't think so.
Not anymore. I had a couple.
Because of that rule?
We didn't have a 20-mile rule. We had rules for if you lived in town, what you could use the car for. If you didn't live in town, it was office, home, period. If you lived in town, the rules were more lax.
Okay.
We're still in budget with this? We're still in budget? at
Oh, yeah,
170?
it's still in the budget. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We have several discussion items. The first one is internet connection, which was suggested by Council Member Hanschel. Craig, I don't know if you wanted to say anything at the outset. We did have one of the folks from IT agree to come and talk about it.
That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, Sydney Reynolds, yeah.
To start with you, I'll go over a little bit of what the broadband grant and challenge map is all about. You should all have a handout that you can follow along with me. The Arkansas Broadband Office is set to receive $1 billion in federal grants. With this round of grants, the goal is to fund projects to provide everyone in Arkansas with access to broadband service. One requirement for the state to receive the federal broadband grant is they have to publish a broadband coverage map and give residents time to challenge the map. The challenge map shows all locations that are either served, unserved, underserved, or funded. Funded means the location is known to be underserved or unserved, and funding has already been set aside to provide service. The Arkansas Broadband Office defines broadband service as 100 megabytes down and 20 megabytes up. This does not include satellite service providers. The way the state got the map is based on data from the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC requires all internet service providers to update them every 6 months showing where the ISPs serve and what level of service they provide. The state is planning to use the federal grant funding to provide service to all locations on the map that show unserved or underserved. If a resident looks at the map and the map shows them as being served and they know they're not served, or they're underserved, they can submit a challenge. And I provided a link here to the broadband office. And basically, if any of you receive emails from the public, you can forward those emails to me, and I'll reach out to them.
Do we have in Bella Vista, do we have, in that map, are there areas that's not served?
Quite a few.
I know there's areas not served, but are they on the map, though? I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of them identified as not served, and then there's quite a few of them that are listed as served, and the residents have said that either they can't get service or they're wanting to charge them up to $20,000 to get service to their house. And that's considered unserved if it costs more than $500 to get service turned on.
You say the state is going to get $1 billion from the federal government, just Arkansas.
Just for Arkansas.
And is that going to go to the utilities to build the infrastructure out? That's where the money's directly going to go?
This can go directly to the ISPs. Because that's what's holding them back, you know, like in a rural area, if you have 3 or 4 residents up on top of a mountain, then it's not cost effective for the service provider to dig fiber to go up to the top of the mountain, but this will bridge that gap. That's fine.
See, a couple things. So whenever I got this, I went online to go through the exercise just like any other person would be charged with going through it, right? I thought it was a little confusing, you know, to work your way through it.
It is.
Quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because when you first open it up, it opens it up to the map. And you're like, okay. And then you figure, well, first I just started making larger till I got to my property. But then it's like, oh, I can put my address in over here. So, you know, that was a little difficult. And then once you get there, you know, you have to go up to the right-hand corner so you can do a test on your service, right? So I don't know that a lot of people really understood at the end of the day, if they did try to do it, how to work their way through it. You know, because you have to be somewhat educated on broadband and how it even works, or even that you can test your service. Probably a lot of people don't even know you can do that, right? But then when I looked at my house, it says underserved, and I have AT&T. AT&T, I have the highest level service they provide, which it's 5010, but it shows me as being underserved, which would be correct for the definition they give. So I just said, well, I don't even need to report anything because it already has me as underserved, right?
That's correct.
So, but even then, when I did my test never came back at 5010. It came back more like, it could be anywhere. It could be 25 and 11. It could be 36 and 7. It varies, right? Depending on whenever you do your test, even from minute to minute. But I guess where I'm going with this, so I'm underserved. Right? So what does that mean? What would the state do in the future to get me served so I have service that meets their broadband definition, right?
Right.
And does AT&T even provide service in Bella Vista that even meets the broadband definition, period?
They do.
So I just noticed what was interesting. So here's my house, and I blew the map out just enough so I could tell what everybody was, just how close there were homes that were listed as served. I was surprised by that. And then there were some that evidently didn't have any service at all. And I'm just scratching my head how that can be. But I don't know what it takes. What will they do to build that infrastructure out to get, let's just say me, I have AT&T, I have the highest level of service to have. I have fiber optic, I believe, to the street in front of my house, but I don't have it from the street to my house. I have the copper cable, right, instead of the fiber optic. So I guess where I'm going with this is, so they get all this information and we get all this testing, where do they go from here? Do they have a plan? Do they even know? Are they formulating a plan?
Well, after they gather this information, this Thursday is the deadline, then the ISPs, they have a chance, they have 30 days to challenge the resident corrections and also to create a plan on how to serve those residents. And then in the end, the state is the one that decides, how to provide that service. And it's going to be through private companies like AT&T or Cox. And in your case, I'm not sure what the solution would be, but AT&T would submit, because, you know, all the ISPs want to submit a plan to get that federal funding, so they'll submit an engineering plan, and then it'll be approved by the state broadband office or denied.
I mean, we're talking a few years, right?
Right, right.
And that's not the internet.
No, it's fine,
review.
yeah.
But that's kind of the thrust behind bringing this to the forefront, was that once the survey went out, I started getting a ton of emails. And I have been challenged prior to getting elected, you know, whenever I was just campaigning, you know, what are you going to do about internet? Well, I don't know what to do about it. You know, we're a municipality. We do not provide utility services outside of water, and I guess we
don't do that.
yeah,
It's,
so
we
I
have
mean,
public water.
so that's the deal. So I mean, so people get confused with, you know, what can you do for me? And the big problem that I have with this is that $1 billion is going to get handed over to ISPs. That's a problem, because who's regulating that money that goes to private enterprise? Because you're talking about handing money over to Cox Communications. Their earnings, 2023, was over $20 billion with a B. They need another $1 billion. And see, and that's kind of the complaint that I keep getting, is that either they're underserved, no service. I mean, I've talked to people who have sent me quotes from providers for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not even a conversation. That's telling them to get lost in a nice way. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it really is. I mean, you know, you're not having a conversation, and, you know, a common person who's just trying to get internet service out to their house. And that's my whole argument, is that, you know, used to, internet was a luxury, or it was, you know, kind of that kitschy thing. But now, I mean, sometimes, you know, you can't even pay your bills without internet access. So it needs to be recognized as a utility. And, you know, if we're going to build infrastructure statewide, you know, to me, it makes more sense on the state level, build infrastructure at the state level, and then have the ISPs compete for your infrastructure. Because what we're doing now is saying, hey, ISPs, here's $1 billion. Go do something. And then we're going to sit on our hands for 5 years and nothing gets done. Because that's the reality of how this works, and it's frustrating. Because you have people who are either on the fringe or, you know, just on the outliers that are, you know, right outside of connection. And you're telling them, hey, you know, give us $50,000, $60,000 and we'll run a cable out to your house. So, and like I said, that's not even a conversation.
Can I touch on that?
Please.
Would you mind? So Cindy and I have spoken to the deputy director of the broadband office several times, in person and via email. And the way that the submission process works is extremely complicated and
Go figure.
not easy, for lack of another way of calling it. So when we were clarifying on what we're supposed to do, because the way it works is the residents submit their challenge and then we have to go in on the back end and complete it. But you can't complete it if there's not certain documents uploaded, but they don't really tell you when you're doing your submission what you're required to upload.
Yeah.
What we have learned is what they're looking for is proof of those conversations. So they have even told us that a PDF write-up of here's what I was told by the company 2 years ago or whatever is sufficient to upload. So I don't know if they're looking for that information, and to be honest, we have no control of what they do on the state level, right? But it makes me feel like they're aware of that issue because he touched on that in our conversations. And he knew that those were the type of submissions that we were going to be getting.
So conversely, here you have an internet service provider with probably a billion-dollar system at their fingertips, right? So you're counting on residents to go in and click a button and watch a speed dial come up and tell them that they got good, bad, and different service, right? Well, you know what? I bet that internet service provider can go to that account and go, quality of service. Dude, and I mean, it'll tell them. They don't need, they want the people to interact at you know, a low percentage, so they don't have to do anything. And they can do all this stuff themselves. They can check their systems. I guarantee you they know exactly how fast the internet service is here. They know exactly how fast it is 20 feet from here. And that's the frustration, is that you have people, I mean, it's almost like Bella Vista, suddenly we're on an island. We've never heard of internet out here. Whatever. I mean, I don't understand, you know, and I really do have empathy for the people that live, you know, out. And it's not like they live way out. I mean, they're 2 miles from here and they can't get internet service. That's ridiculous. And then for the state to sit here and go, well, jump through all these hoops, and then we're going to hand this guy who makes $1 gajillion, we're going to hand them more money to sit on their hands and give you no results. And that's my frustration. Sir? Say that again?
Welcome to the federal government.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I mean. So, I mean, that's the conversation I'm trying to have tonight, is that I spoke with Jason. You know, I think we might have a workaround to move the needle as a community. I don't know. I'm trying.
I've got something that would be interesting to know, and Sydney's worked. Sydney happens to be standing there. He's not the state office.
Yeah. I'm not saying this to you.
But how is the state going to decide? This is my question. If I had them in front of me, how is the state going to decide? Okay, I've got $1 billion. How do they determine the need? Number one, so they're going to have some formula based on the need. And then how are they going to decide, say in Bella Vista, not only how much, but is it going to be AT&T that gets it or Cox that gets it? How do they, and then isn't there an inefficiency in that? In other words, if you let one company build it all out, you're going to get more than if you divide it in half.
And that's where we're at right now. I mean, you basically have one company that has a monopoly on this community. And they really don't do a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, from Facebook groups to emails to phone calls, you know, there's a lot of dissatisfied people that live in this community. And like I said, I'm not saying this to you, I'm just saying this broadly, out loud. You know, it's a problem. You know, it's a problem in 2024 where everybody has a smartphone, everybody needs internet.
But I can tell you, Craig, I would be willing to bet you the state is going to prioritize the east, where there may be a house and 3 miles another house.
Absolutely.
And 4 miles another house, because they're never going to get anything. They look at Bella Vista and say, oh, there are houses everywhere. It's just a matter of time. They'll eventually.
Right.
Although the guy did say that Bella Vista has the highest level of engagement of anywhere else in Benton County.
What's that?
So they are participating more than anybody else.
Yeah, he did
Which
say it's the highest in the state.
could either mean
You mean as far as
they do what they're
survey's
asked, or they have the worst service.
By doing the speed test and getting online and applying, we have like 23 that we need to assist with tomorrow that are just pending, that we need to interact with them to get them sent to the state. So that's what we're trying to do to help. Basically, the state told me, I had about an hour conversation with the deputy director today to kind of clear up what they're doing. The federal government's requiring them to let the citizens challenge the map before they can get the $1 billion grant approved. So that's why they're putting it out. It's not real easy. They put it together in-house, and Cassie's right. It's kind of challenging to put together, but we're going to assist whoever you send our way. We'll help them get through the process.
What I was surprised at is how many residences looked like they were tagged as served. I was kind of taken back whenever I really started looking all around at the community. I looked at me and I was like, well, shoot, I'm like in the minority here. I have the best service AT&T has, but yet I'm still underserved. So if you have the potential for 100 megabytes, right? And what did you say the download was, 20? If you have the potential at your home to get that, that doesn't mean you're going to get it all the time, right? It depends on traffic that's online as well at the same time you're on there. So if you have that potential and that's what you're signed up for, but you're not necessarily going to get it, does that mean you're underserved? Or because you have the potential to get it at your home, doesn't mean you're going to get it all the time, but you're still served? I don't even know. I don't know. It's complicated. It's just interesting to me the way this process is kind of working right now. I don't really know.
We're doing our best with it. Even the messaging coming from the state level is confusing because when they first put it out, it was only local government can do this. Residents cannot do it themselves. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, now residents can do it. And then they put out graphics that were a little bit confusing, and it just seems like it's very quickly pushed to fill a time frame.
There's Bella Vista, and all those gray dots say served.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's damn near the whole, I'm sorry, but it shows the whole city, except for these areas up here, up on the north area, which are underserved or unserved. But
And that would be the question that I'd have at the state level is, you're a provider, give me an audit of your own systems to that map. I want to see what you're seeing internally versus what the people are saying externally. And then you want to qualify for any of that money. You know, there lies the rub. I mean, as far as what people are saying they're actually getting versus what they're assuming they're getting.
Would you be open to having a meeting with the deputy
Absolutely.
director?
Sure.
I'll be on it with you if you want to try to do it this way.
You know, it seems like in Bella Vista, where we have the lines, they're supposedly pretty good. But I think part of the issue that we have is we have streets where when they were initially putting the lines in, they got bypassed. And so someone that's literally not even that far away, let's just say it's 100 or 200 feet, the numbers I typically get is AT&T or Cox told me it'd be $4,000 or $5,000 to run a line to my house from where it runs down the street. Like you live on a lane, right, which is typically a cul-de-sac or something like that. Those are the people I get contacted by the most.
And we can beat this up for the next 3 hours and not be very far. Let's get the meeting set up and see what's going on. Because it's just,
You don't want to sit here for 3 more hours?
you know me.
Oh, I know.
Motion to adjourn.
We can order pizza in.
Well, no, we need a food truck
I'll
out front.
stop, we still have to get through other things.
No, I don't mean that so much, but we're gonna beat this up back and forth, and we don't have a class, 'cause even our guys don't know what's going on.
No, I
I bet
know.
you the state doesn't either.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
Who all wants to be in that meeting? You do?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I've got AT&T U-verse where I am now, and the TV is on a dish, separate, so I've got internet and telephone at the house. And if I, on a good day, I can do 35 on the download and 10 on 12 on the upload on my U-verse service, because it's all copper wires.
That would, by definition, that would be considered underserved.
I'll give you a call tomorrow. Thanks, Sid.
About 2 years,
Sydney, in answer to that question, I'd like to be at that meeting if I can make it.
Okay, I'll reach out to both of you, we'll set that up.
about 2 years ago, the county had money for internet service.
I think it was during COVID, but
Yeah, and they offered that money to Cox,
it didn't try it.
and they turned it down. So why? I don't know why, but I don't know what impact that would have on this, and other than that, Cox and
Probably paperwork.
Well, they extended that during COVID due to students being at home. Because that's the rural kids didn't have internet access to go to,
Yeah.
so.
There's a lot of things going on. Cox has a contract right now, and doesn't cover anybody in Bella Vista, it's in Northwest Arkansas. And it's a 2-year contract, and they literally have specific addresses. If your house was right next to the one they have the list, you don't get it.
That's ridiculous.
And that's just how it works, that's how their contract was written up, so it's different.
I digress.
Okay, let's move on to sewer systems. Councilmember Snow wanted this placed on the agenda.
I think if we're going to be 50,000 people in the next 5 to 10 years, 50,000 plus, we need to do something. We got to start something about a sewer system. But I don't see how we're going to be able to continue with the septic system issue if the population is going to increase to that much. So, you know, what are we going to do? Are we going to?
Well, we're trying to figure that out right now. I started conversations with Village Wastewater. John and I believe Craig, they made a trip over and they had a conversation as well. Recently, John and I, we just combined our notes and I put together one document. We went back over to talk to Frank, just to be sure that we had all of our baseline information correct.
Yeah, Frank Knight.
Yeah, Frank Knight, about the system, what their capacity is, how much additional capacity can they handle, what are their future plans, and all that. And right now, they've got sufficient capacity. You know, the thing is getting lines down, et cetera. They have some future plans that they were going to roll out in 2024 that they just got permission. That they just got permission for, which is basically running lines Finger Hatch or Hope, you know, to start in the old area of Cooper. So they do have plans. The thing is, it's a private entity, right? It's not public. And really, as far as like what we can do in the future, we're trying to figure that out right now. Because we're not going to be able to do anything like wholesale at one time. It's going to be an unfolding conversation. So we're going to have a conversation, when is it, in April the 25th or 24th with Richard Murphy again, get some more information from him. And then we're going to start trying to figure out if we can even work with a private entity or not as a public government. We don't know whether we can or whether we can't. Then we'll probably end up somewhere talking to people down at the state to see if they can help us find some funding to approach the situation in some manner. And we don't even know exactly what that means. It's a complicated conversation here in Bella Vista, and it's an expensive one. Well, it's going to need a bond issue because the current plant can't take anything from the highlands. You're going to have to build a whole new system up there.
No,
that's not necessarily true. They're talking about taking a line over 279 and dropping it over the hill down to the intersection somewhere of Gordon Hollow Road and Scottsdale Road. They're still going to have to build a new system.
Put a pump system. No, they don't have to build a new system. They just have to continue to build the lines out. Right now, the system that they have is a 999,000 gallon system. It's operating at about 350,000 gallons, so they still have a lot of capacity.
Yeah, I know they got.
And on the same property they have, if they do build that out and fulfill that, then they've got land on the property that exists right now to build another treatment plant the same size as the one they have. So as far as like capacity to process, if you will, sewer in Bella Vista is not the issue. The issue is building out the lines. And the second issue is, again, it's a private entity. In what manner can we work with a private entity as a public government? We don't know. And to your point, the money, I don't know, do we do a bond issue? Do we go to the state first and see if they can work with us? And so it's building out the system, but another thing is hooking homes up that are currently on the lines, but they're not hooked up to the system. Because we don't have a requirement right now to require homes that are on, sitting on the line to hook up unless the house sells on a transaction, and that's the only time they're required to hook up. So we could already hook up some additional homes, but either number one, people have to be willing to spend the money to do that if they're on the line, or secondarily, can we source some money to help people that are on the lines hook up to the system and defray some of the costs.
we're like in initial conversation, we're not exactly sure where this was gonna go. It's
No,
a
I
big and
understand that.
complicated situation, and from what angle do we approach it?
And the third problem, which he just barely touched on, I would characterize as a political one, namely that people have to pay, not just the city, people have to pay money, and I'm talking real money, to hook up to it. And a lot of people are kind of like they hang in there with their septic, and really the choice is hang in there with your septic or shell out around $10,000.
The estimate right now is around 10 grand.
If you're lucky.
It went from 4 grand to 10 grand.
Well, and it was never 4 grand that I ever heard. The
It was
minimum
4
was
grand.
6 to 7.
Used to be, yeah.
Yeah, I go a long time ago, not since I've been involved in it.
Maybe when
So-
it was about-
So it's a lot of money from the city, it's a lot of money from the citizens, both.
So anyway, the net of it is, we have been having conversations, and we've been circling the wagons, we've been trying to figure it out. There's like low-hanging fruit right now, things that we could do if we had the funding. When I say we wouldn't have to spend a lot of money, we wouldn't have to spend nearly the money that you think we might have to spend. So anyway, the conversations are taking place. There's a document, and I don't know, the gentleman, what's the name of the gentleman that wrote this?
Oh, Jim Foster.
Jim Foster.
Yeah.
It's a really nice document. It's called Septic Tanks, A Future Crisis in Bella Vista. It really probably needs to be circulated if he'd be willing to allow us to do that, just to start educating people in Bella Vista what a serious, situation this is. To your point, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. We've been talking about it. We've been trying to figure it out.
We've used consultants in the past for a variety of things. Would it not be prudent to retain a consultant that can tell us about all the different funding that will be available? Would this even feasible?
Well, there's funding available to the city, to public entities or public agencies, but there is not funding available to private agencies. Okay. So that's one of the difficulties. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going, I'm sorry to interrupt, Larry. What I was going to say is there are lots of ways that are different than what we do now that we'd have to look at in terms of how this all operated. In other words, and I think Larry and I may have talked about this at one point, say, for example, Village Wastewater continues to own and operate the plant, but transfers all the transmission lines and all of the customer accounts and all that to the public, to the city, in which case it would be a city septic system, which we contracted with Village or whomever to provide treatment of our effluent. That's one thing. If we did that, and this is what I'm going to say is one of those things that I think that you would say, boy, I wish we'd have known that when we first started talking about this. Here's what I'm about to tell you, because this is the part that's not going to sound good. If the city goes all this route and we issue bonds and we decide we're going to take a significant part of this city and build out the septic lines to connect in a situation like we've discussed, then we are going to have to mandate disconnection from septic tanks and connection to the sewer system immediately. It's not going to be when you sell, because if we're going to borrow money in order to do that, we're going to have to have we're going to have to know how many customers we're going to have. And then we're also going to need to know how many customers we're going to have to know what rate we've got to charge. And if you're going to, the reality is, and again, this is I'm not saying don't do it. I think it's appropriate issue to deal with, certainly, and it's a crisis. But we start going through the neighborhoods and digging them up, and we tell them, you're going to have this piece of equipment buried in your yard, and it's going to cost so much to connect, and now you're going to pay a certain amount of dollars per month that you're not paying now. That is a reality you all will have to face. That's just a political reality. I don't know how much stomach there is for that, because that is what I would see would have to happen if you borrow, especially if you bonded it and did something along the lines of what we're talking about. So there's the actual how do you do it, and then there's how do you convince people that they need to do it. And I'm gonna tell you, that second scenario should cause everybody a great deal of pause, because you all have sat in these meetings and know how much controversy there has been just about requiring a connection to the sewer when the property sells, and how many feet it has to be. And now we're talking about, and this is state law, I know people aren't gonna agree with this, but this is in the books. The law would require them to cease using the septic tanks, close the septic tanks, fill them in, connect to the municipal sewer supply immediately, or within a definite time frame. So it is complicated in that way as well, and I just want to make sure that's stated from the very beginning, that's an issue we're going to have to challenge.
I think a good stepping off point would be checking with the state, and seeing if there's any kind of funding.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's why we were just kind of like taking this step by step.
Yeah.
You know, and just trying to figure out where we are and where we potentially might go, and if there's any funding. I don't want to, because what's going to happen is, it's already going to start. Oh, the city's going to, start a sewer system, and they're going to require us to unhook and hook up. It's already going to be done. Well, it's not. We're not even close.
It's a long period of time.
And I'm very aware of everything that Jason just stated, and I'm not making any big, bold predictions or statements about anything, because right now, we're so early in this whole thing. We don't even know if Village Wastewater at this particular moment will even work with us, or even be willing to.
Or if they're able to work with us.
Right, exactly. So,
Well,
Right,
that's
because
part-
they have contractual commitments in terms of some of their capacity that they've already assigned.
And that's part of the conversation too, like what we were talking about, is it's not gonna matter until everybody's smelling it coming off the lakes.
That's unfortunate. It doesn't become enough of a public, it's like, we're willing to do this because of the problem.
And then everybody's gonna start, because I don't think anybody realizes how critical this is as a community, at the community level.
Yeah.
Everybody in this room maybe, but outside of this,
I think the best local example is Bethel Heights.
Yeah.
Their
Exactly.
reputation was completely trashed, and they became
They don't
acquired
exist
by
anymore.
Springdale.
Right.
But the difference is, Bella Vista has a really nice reputation as a beautiful, fun place. And Bethel Heights never had that. The reputation is still, ours would really be trashed
Yeah,
if all the lakes went bad.
right.
Because we didn't have proper sewer.
As soon as the environmental group that covers the pollution,
Well,
as
going
soon
back-
as they detect that our septic systems are contaminating our lakes, they will
Right.
come and say,
And to
City.
Doug's point, Foster, that's a great article.
it's
I
a
mean,
document.
oh, it's a,
Document,
it's,
Right, it-
Yes, then you end up with things like consent decrees and
all sorts of
and
things.
federal court and Clean Water Act challenges and, nightmare stuff.
When it gets to that point, it's too late.
It just gets incredibly much
That's
more,
what it
a lot more expensive for
What
sure.
we're trying to say, and people, depending on what their own personal situation is, will fight it till their dying breath, but people need to listen,
It's like a house fire. Nobody's interested about the fire department until the house is on fire.
Yeah.
So anyway, you asked, that's what's been going on, and we're working on it.
That's great, thank you.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Jerry.
That's awesome.
I think some of the ideas about how the local private costs are funded is a critical question. Some states allow the municipality to finance the local costs to the property owner and provide up to a 10-year payment period, or sale of the property, it becomes due and payable. And so Arkansas doesn't have that provision, at least that I am aware of today. Some states do, and it's a separate bond issue that you bond that portion of the contract so that the connection costs are covered and all of that, so.
The thing is, we don't, that's a conversation that we haven't even, we're not even close to having right now, right? So anyway, yeah. More to come.
It's a,
Okay, the next issue is a squatter issue, also brought up by Councilmember Snow.
Squatters seem to be a popular thing around the country now. I think we have lots of opportunity potentially for squatters in Bella Vista. We have a lot of homes that are vacant for a period of time, whether it be in the winter time or whenever it might be. You were going to research, Jason, as to what the situation is,
It's pretty much what I thought, Jerry, when we spoke about we had discussed some recent statute in Florida that was adopted, and I've heard my own news stories about that issue coming up in a couple of different places, I'm not sure where. So the best I can understand is, in some of these states, and I'll use Florida as an example, you have these absentee owners who may not either come to the property or see the property for years. And you have people that have been basically living in there or claiming to live in there or for a number of years, such that they can claim what's called adverse possession in the law. And Arkansas has adverse possession. And in order to have adverse possession, you basically just take possession of someone's property in a manner that's open and notorious and adverse to the rights of the true owner. In Arkansas, you also have to have color of title and pay the taxes on the property for a period of 7 years. And if you were to have all those things, it's potentially you could go to court and tell the judge, hey, it's mine. I've been paying the taxes. I've been telling everybody it's my house. Maybe I have color of title, and that's the key that I think people may have difficulty establishing in Arkansas. And I don't know what the rule is in Florida or other places, but I had some right to claim that I own it. Maybe I used to rent it, or I talked to that guy, just some claim, and then they could go to court. Now, I don't know of a case where an outright house has been obtained by adverse possession in Arkansas. It's a concept. I'm much more acquainted with the concept of prescriptive easements, where a person can use someone else's property to the extent that it becomes they have a right to use it. They've always gone across that corner of that lot to drive across it. There was never an easement, and I've done it for 10 years, and now the owner puts up a fence and won't let me do it. Well, they can go to court and say, hey, I've got a right to it's a prescriptive easement. You have acquiesced to this for a number of years. And it's not the exact same thing, but it's analogous. So I don't know what the law is in Florida to establish adverse possession. I don't know if it has a color of title or a tax-paying requirement that we have in Arkansas. So Jerry, to answer your question about more information, that's what I've been able to determine. And I've told Jerry this too. I'm unfamiliar with anyone squatting in Bella Vista, and I think that if someone called, and I don't want to speak for the police, but I would advise them if they said, we had someone call and say, hey, I own a townhome, there's some guy in there shacked up living. I don't know, it's been 6 months since I've been here. This is my place, and he needs to get out of here. I think we go deal with a trespasser. Now, if that person ended up with some kind of documents and some claim, I mean, we're not going to get into civil issues with them, and we might tell that landlord, well, you're going to need to do an eviction. And I think what's happened in Florida is you've got a lot of people who may have been either too late or having to do full evictions on cases where they did not want to do all that. And so I can't speak to the motivation and what's led it to be a hot topic in Florida particularly, and I don't want to pick on Florida. I think maybe in Texas or California, somewhere else where I've seen it.
So if someone occupies, let's say someone rents a house in Bella Vista for 3 days, and at the end of a week, they're still there. Is that trespassing, or?
I want to be honest with you, Jerry, that poses a unique situation because they are there on a lease basis. They had a right to be there. They are now, and I know of no exception to this, they're what's called a holdover tenant. So, for example, let's just say you have what we call around here long-term, but let's just say a traditional house lease. You lease a house for a year, and you pay $750 a month to live there. That may be good rent nowadays. But anyway, and the lease ends, and the lease itself may say, if you stay here, then you pay $900 a month on a month-to-month basis. Then they're a holdover tenant, and they pay $900 and something a month every month, and then if they quit paying, then they'd be subject to eviction. If there is no provision for holdover, I mean, like I said, the police is not going to get involved in litigating the civil lease issue. We don't know what the situation is. And so if someone had an Airbnb and the people would not move out of it, I got to be honest with you, it's one of those gray areas where, I mean, they were supposed to be out on Monday, they're not there. You know, hotels don't do full evictions on people, but I'd be willing to bet somewhere in the country they may have had to, I don't know. All these things are generally regulated in the lease agreement itself. I'm guessing, but I don't know, the Airbnb has a format-based lease agreement which may deal with these holdover situations and give the landlord certain rights. I can't speak to every single situation. It may not be the same to an Airbnb and VRBO. There may be no standard agreement. I'm guessing, though, that there is. So I can't account for every particular circumstance.
Well, the situation of a long-term lease, they got a year's lease, and they pay for 3 months and just quit paying that.
Then you need to evict. You got to evict. You got to go through a civil eviction process, which is a lawsuit. It's a notice procedure. Anybody that rents a lot of apartments can tell you that they're Lindsay Associates. They can tell you all about it, or Lindsay Management rather. But you serve them up with a notice. You've got 10 days to move out. If they don't move out, then you go to court. You file basically a lawsuit. They get another notice. They're served with the lawsuit. And if they don't get, you get the landlord gets what's called a writ of possession from the court. That goes to the sheriff. Then when the sheriff gets that, the sheriff goes to the place and knocks on the door and moves them out, changes the locks, and does the actual physical eviction.
I think what's happening is what's been on the news, particularly in some of these other states, and as you know, states vary with their landlord and tenant. I've always heard ours is not as strong for tenants as some places. But what's happening is it's a short-term problem. People squat in your house, then they have some piece of paper, they claim they have a lease, they actually never did have a lease, they just broke into the house and are living there. And it takes you a long time to kick them out. And in some states it takes way longer than others. And I think actually it was mostly happening in places like California and
New York.
and Florida passed a new law to try to get rid of the squatter situation, and just recently, that's why they were. And I think Florida would be susceptible to it because they have a lot of places that people are not there all the time. People have a second place in Florida and they're somewhere else half the time, maybe more. Anyway, wondering is, does our municipality, do we need to do something about squatters, or is this probably not going to be a problem for us?
Well, Chief of Police is back there. I don't think I've seen a call about anyone staying overnight. I mean, you have people, you have break-ins, you have people that may sleep on the couch overnight, but that's a breaking or entering situation.
We haven't seen anything like that. I'm not saying it would never happen, but I think we'd go out and we'd take a lay of the land and look at any documentation, and if it seemed legitimate, then it would be a civil issue. If it didn't seem legitimate, then we'd throw people out. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, if somebody shows up with a lease for on a napkin, I mean, I don't think that's going to really work with us, but, we can go from there. I mean, I haven't seen the necessity here, though it's been across the country, but those states it's happened, I think somebody mentioned, they have really, really strong laws for renters' rights and less for landlords. I think Arkansas is somewhat the opposite, if I'm not, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So Arkansas is really the opposite.
Maybe we should just wait and keep our eye on it, and if it's a problem, jump on it and do something about it.
My only point was that things like this, when they start, seem like when they start and they mushroom to other areas, it's kind of like the short-term rental. I mean, we'd have been on the front end of that rather than the middle or the back end. Maybe it'd been a lot easier to deal with, but deal with it, try to do something to deal with it before it happens, but maybe that's the wrong approach.
Actually, people seem to think we're on the front end of it. When I have my calls with other mayors, they haven't done anything about it. So, well, we're waiting to see how yours goes. You're the one that jumped out there and did something.
Front end of it.
Oh,
There were other cities that
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
like way
We weren't
before
the ones before us.
Right.
Anyway.
So,
We just happen to have a group of property owners that disagreed with us, and so they...
Yeah.
but thanks for bringing that up. It's always good to bring things up. Why don't we move on to parking Tanyard Creek walking trails? Says
I got a
council
call from a
members
lady who
Wise and
lives
Wells.
in the townhouses over there. And Canyon Creek has become a rather really popular walking trail. And on weekends, they park the paved section full in minutes. On occasion, the POA has let them park on the grass. It's a rather large area.
The overflow.
Huh?
The overflow?
Yeah, on the grass.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't always open that up. And even when they do, it fills. I was there Sunday at noon, and I figured, okay, the parking lot paved was already full. They were already into the grass. And people hadn't barely got home from church, ate lunch, and come back to walk, so I can imagine what it would look like at 2 or 3. This lady, on numerous occasions, because she lives on the streets out there, people come and park on both sides of the street. Vehicles can't get down the street. She has personally witnessed altercations, people parking in front of fire hydrants, and people actually parking on other folks' grass. So she's wondering what we can do to alleviate some of that. And, you know, tell the POA keeps that grassy part open, because I went by today to come in here and the grassy part's closed. So, you know, I guess a only real solution is no parking signs, and I don't know how big that would go with the residents, but it may or may not solve the problem. So she's asking for a little bit of relief for all this extra traffic. Now, it's worse on weekends, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be anywhere in between.
Well, you know that driving range that they have down there? That's a large parking lot.
It's under construction now.
Yeah, but you can get in because they're still parking cars. People aren't going to walk that far, even though it's a walking trail. People aren't going to go down there and walk back, trust me.
Yeah, I hear you.
They're not.
I told the chief that this was going to be a topic. And there are some no parking signs out there on the street now, by the park area. I don't know how far down, I don't know that they go down that residential
It's not
street.
no parking
They don't go
on that
down on the
side.
streets at all. I was just down there.
The chief, is that
Yes,
what your understanding is?
This came onto our radar a couple weeks back, and so we went over the whole park on the grass thing, and it was determined that, you know, obviously the POA can't park people on the grass, the way the city code currently reads. I don't think there's a variance in the code for that. So we went down there and looked at it, and there's already no parking signs there, you know, entering that area. The direction I gave my folks is, you know, try to go through on the weekends, make sure the streets remain open, understanding people have to park there, but we want to make sure that the streets are passable. I've just been told when I came to the meeting this morning that, or this evening, by some of the residents that very often the streets are not passable. And so I've asked people to please call us when that takes place, because if we go out there and people are parked in front of fire hydrants or in front of driveways or streets aren't passable where an emergency vehicle can't get through, then people will be ticketed and or towed. I don't see really a short-term solution for this issue right now. I just don't. The way the city ordinance currently reads, nobody can park on the grass. If we allow the POA to park on the grass, then we're going to have every resident that we've ticketed for parking on the grass and or gravel and not SB2 in the city, you know, asking why the POA gets to park people on the grass and they can't. So I think that's kind of where it's at right now. So
Isn't our grass thing only for houses?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's not. So maybe we need to change that or allow them to use it. But that still, when it fills, they're still going to go down the street. Maybe some no parking sign would force them down to Tanyard, because it's not going to be under construction forever, so eventually that road will open up. It's open now, but, you know, you got to get past the sign.
I would just like to caution, you know, residents, and, you know, I think we need to help the residents, but residents need to understand as well, as soon as we put up no parking signs, guess what? When it's not a problem, they can't park there either. So we have to be careful about what we ask for here, because if we put up no parking signs, then nobody can park there. Even when the congestion problem is fixed because the driving range is all fixed up and people can overflow there, then people who have live in those neighborhoods and they have family over for, you know, holiday weekends and things, and, you know, they won't be able to park.
There's always going to be a problem.
They won't be able to park in the streets because there'll be no parking
There's going to be
signs.
a problem that way.
Well, I don't think this necessarily needs council action, but my reaction to, I spoke to that lady on the phone, and as you predicted, the POA contacted me about this problem, because they'd really like that extra grassy area to be allowable. But one thing I think is obvious needs to be done is on that side street at 90-degree angle where she's talking about, where all the condos are, or townhouses, whatever.
On 10-year drive.
Yeah, 10-year drive. You're gonna have to say no parking this side and have one side you can't park on. Because you can't have cars there and vehicles not be able to get through. I mean, people couldn't even back out of their driveways and things like that. So I think that's the obvious solution to that. But you still have a huge, the two people I spoke to the most about this were Taylor Robertson about the code and our esteemed attorney, and they were both very legal and very unsympathetic, frankly. This is a huge problem, and it's not a POA problem, it's a city problem. Because it's not just a few more cars in our parking places, there's like tons. Now the POA has an idea of making that extra area a parking lot.
Well, they do open it and they got it fenced off for that. But
Yeah.
it's not always open.
Yeah, but that's all illegal.
Well,
They can't park in the grass. is
Yeah.
what's a-
well, you know, too bad, so sad if it solves the problem.
Well,
Are they parking the grass on the 4th of July fireworks?
that's the only answer I can give.
I know, you're trying to keep us legal and
Yeah, very much so.
sometimes it gets in the way.
Yeah, that and,
Sometimes that gets in the way.
Yeah, that wasn't a criticism.
No, we could,
They're allowed to be
we could try the
unsympathetic.
one side of the street and see what happens. You know, we don't need an ordinance or anything for that. We try one side of the street and see what happens.
But there's not enough space, I mean, it's,
The streets are standard width narrow, and it's curved along 10-year drive. And so that makes it even more difficult, because you can't get a car off of there without really going up the curb and parking on somebody's private grass.
The signage can be more specific than just no parking. I mean, that could be no parking between noon and 6 o'clock PM on Sundays or on the weekends. I mean,
Yeah,
if we have and then otherwise they could park, but, you know.
It's a matter of trying. We got to do something.
yeah, but
If it doesn't work, you try something
Park
else.
on one side and be okay.
Well,
It's
whatever-
two
whatever
sides
works.
is killing you.
so the area where the grass is, how's it zoned? Is it zoned what?
It's next to the parking
I
lot.
understand, but
That's it.
is it zoned where they
They're,
can make a parking
they're,
lot out of it?
they're, Taylor's right there.
Yeah, it's just gonna take a month to do it.
It's residential, single family.
So we have to rezone it.
Not essentially, because it's a trailhead, and we changed the table to allow trail affiliated uses throughout all zones
So,
last year.
so are they, is the POA thinking of making that into a paved parking area to add to what they have now? Is that true?
I've been contacted by a developer that they have had basically look into it to see what it would be. She basically told me that they were looking into possibly paving it and expanding it, basically doubling the size of the parking lot that's there. But since that phone call, I've not heard or had another email regarding from the POA or from her since.
I had a pleasant conversation
It would
with
take months, it would be 6 months. Summer would be over.
You know,
It's gonna go the entire summer, believe me, it's a.
It would take another 3 months or something to get something, you have to approve it, first of all. Got to come through there, and they have to have the engineering done.
You need engineering.
Do that, so-
Depends on what the
It's a-
application
Planning
is.
commission.
So it's not a short-term fix. We can have it fixed by next year.
Yeah, this is a short-term fix, that's the question.
So the short-term thing to satisfy the property owners who live in the townhouses, I think, is either parking on one side only, or an even odd parking, where you...
That's confusing.
That's confusing to
Even though it
people.
should be obvious, that's
Yeah,
confusing to
yeah.
people.
What day of the week is it? And I park on the wrong side, so that's not good. It's best to have signage out there that's specific. And the question would be is do we allow it parking at certain times of the day? And then what times do we set for that? So we can say, okay, no parking from 11 to 7. 11 in the morning to 7 at night. That covers the activity daylight time. Is that a good, maybe?
That's a big leap.
When you're getting off topic, if you let people park on one side of the street, that's 10 cars, and
Yeah.
you need room for 50 cars.
Yeah.
So yippee, we made space for 10 cars.
You haven't done a lot, but you've done a
The
little.
problem.
So, and then the people who live on that side of the street are now aggravated because you've allowed them to park on that side. So
Yeah, they'll get over it.
best to post it as no parking at all, or parking on one side
We need to
only.
do something so that people think we're not ignoring them.
On that, but
You make a decision like, hey, parking wise, like what could happen, like, hey, just, or the city police can't, or the street.
but the parking on the grass, it's
Oh,
just
that's
straight
fine.
up illegal.
I can't tell you how many events we used to park on that grass. And nobody said a word.
You don't.
How many events in the past we
Jim,
used that grass?
I can't, we can't just say, oh, just go ahead. But just,
No.
how do we do that and not have everyone in the city riot?
They're
That
not
we
gonna-
let them do what they want just
Yeah.
because. That's unconstitutional.
Tell them they're not gonna riot, but you're already having fisticuffs on the street. You say-
But that's unconstitutional just to, for us to knowingly ignore the rules.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, Jim,
How many houses do we go by that's got the wrong gravel for their sidecar? How many of those?
Okay.
How many we got, you know, we do a lot of that. We ignore, when we did the trash can ordinance, we ignored the daylights out of that
So,
stupid.
wait, we've got these other trailheads, that's that SB 2, right? And if they just, even for temporary, if they just put down SB2 so they can make it a parking lot, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know,
well, I'm about to tell
Like
you.
that?
There are requirements about expanding the parking lot. Taylor can talk to you, because that was a question I asked of
How long
Taylor.
did that take?
So why can't they just pour some gravel out there and then they can't?
Can't do that.
They could, if they wanted to do that, it's still, any development of a parking lot that's 5 spaces or more requires a large-scale development and a grading and erosion control permit from us. So they could do an LSD and request a waiver of our servicing requirements to do service, SB2, contain it and all that good stuff. But again, it's still the same process as asphalt.
It just cuts out the asphalt.
Still gotta do a drainage report.
Residents call me to tell me.
I think the reality is that Tanyard Creek Trail has become very popular in the city. And the available parking that's available is being exceeded by the people who live in the POA. And so it's incumbent upon the POA to enlarge their parking capability down at that facility. And I don't know if that's a given. Are they doing something that you know of in terms of planning to expand their current parking lot?
Tanyard?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I've only been contacted by one, so the concept is what would be required.
okay.
It's only
You don't know.
temporary. It's a
So we should encourage them, I think, and the public can encourage them at the POA meetings. I think it's a POA problem, it's a POA amenity. So it's a POA parking issue that their facilities are being overused
Exactly what I said.
by more than they have ability to accommodate. So it's not a city problem in the sense that it's our facility.
Here's why I said,
But,
it's not, I'll say for the benefit of everyone, that park is not public.
I know.
That's it's POA facility. But to my knowledge, that trail out to the waterfall and all of that stuff out there, that is not dedicated, there is no part of the license agreement that includes that, to my knowledge. So I'd have to go back, I'm pretty sure of this, but at any point, the POA can just put up a guard shack and say, show me a membership card, and keep everybody off of that that's not a member. I don't think there's any legal reason they couldn't do that. So if it's different, Mayor, when I say it's a POA problem, so many of these trails are licensed to the general public, and we do share in that. That particular area, though, specifically was not.
Like an old school trail.
And so there is a little bit of a different scenario.
So I guess in the bottom line, my encouragement would be is that we approve no parking along Tanyard Creek Drive there for the benefit of the residents. But the question would be for the residents, do they want a time limit so that they can use it for their own parties in the neighborhood? In other words, we put no parking signs at any time. That means no parties, no guests on your house can park in the street.
Well, that's why I said on one side, then when you have a party, you can park on the other side.
And all the driveways are a little longer down there, so.
We're not gonna solve this right
Also,
now.
there's a fight on the street.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
Next.
Thank you.
They could have carpooling. They could carpool.
I'm going to the lady called me, she said, so what?
Offer parking spots as a short-term rental.
She is?
Okay. And next one, potential guaranteed
Well, I
maximum.
mean, we can't write an ordinance tonight.
No, but we don't, just let them do it.
Okay. Next one is potential guaranteed maximum price amendment for Phase 2 of the fire station, number 1, city administration renovation project at Town Center. Mayor Flynn and Chief Sims, and Chief Sims is here.
Yeah, just real quickly, the reason why this is on the agenda tonight is I was hoping to have that GMP for the work session tonight, but he's got a couple of bids he's still trying to obtain right now, and he thinks he's gonna get them sometime this week. So I was hoping to get the GMP in front of Jason so he can look at that before the next council meeting. So that's why we're having this discussion.
Before Monday?
Before
Put it on for Monday?
Yes, for Monday. That's why this is on the discussion, because of that.
Thought we'd been through this before, that we had a maximum price for doing this project.
Do what?
Is my recollection.
No,
So what we're doing, this is
Now,
actually,
this
the other
is
part.
phase
We had a
two.
maximum price for Phase
Phase one.
1, which was changing the police station and
Police
the
building.
fire living
Police
quarters.
building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So
and this
each
is
building.
Phase
This
2.
is the add-on.
Yeah, so-
Phase 2 is the city hall and the fire
So
office
do you
is
have,
above it.
do y'all have those drawings? What it is
Yeah.
basically is city administration, which is a two-story added on to the existing two-story. City administration on the bottom and then fire administration on the top. Total of about just under 7,000 square foot.
That's on the north.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the north, coming out the north in there.
It's where Maryland is.
This is actually gonna be 4 phases.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why we're here, is because I'm hoping to get that in front of council on Monday.
Steve, as the construction manager, give any sort of estimate of the numbers they expect to see?
So right now, just to give you an idea, what we've been seeing in our recent construction that we've had in the past, anywhere from 384 to 400 square foot, so put around the 2.7 million for the second phase.
How much?
About 2.7, roughly.
2.7 mil?
Yes.
Because that's not in the budget anywhere.
Yeah, currently it's in the capital budget.
That's what I was gonna say.
For the most part of the project this year is in capital budget, yes.
So is all of the 2.7 included in our budget?
So most of the money's in our budget. It's not gonna be spent this year, that's the thing. Most of the 4.5 million of that is in our budget, capital budget.
We went through all this at the original presentation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because some of it drips over into the
That's
next
correct.
year, right?
That's
And look
correct.
at that 2025.
Yeah, this right here, this phase here, once it gets started, we're looking at June completion of next year,
Yeah.
of the two-story.
Well, if memory serves, you did your due diligence, making sure that we had money
That's
to
correct.
progress throughout.
Yes, that's right. We should be okay through the capital and then next year we'll adjust the budget.
What are you thinking on completion of Phase 1 lately?
So right now, phase 1, we're looking, currently right now, they're getting ready to start sheet rocking. And once they get sheet rocking going, it should move pretty quick. I'm looking at somewhere around June, July area timeframe, roughly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
On
So,
topic.
So is the new generator and everything in?
for that, it's been ordered, but it's not in yet. Matter of fact, we haven't got the one for the training center yet, so.
That's what I was gonna ask. The training center, is that?
So the training center, for the most part, the support building's done, they should be hopefully installing the generator by the end of this month. That's the only thing that's left on the support building is the training center.
I knew we were getting close.
Yeah, and they're doing touch-up on the training tower. Right now, we should have that turned over to us by the end of this week, and then we're having our open house on May 3rd. So
Thursday?
it's May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Oh, May 3rd.
It's a Friday.
So this one you
Let us
passed
do.
out, right?
Yes,
And this was the one that was sent by Wanda, so it's a little different.
yeah, it could be. Which one is it, set by one? Whatever I sent.
After the agenda Thursday.
One of these says
Yeah,
fire,
it's-
and one says city.
It's
Well, this is-
the same as
Right, right.
Should've been the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
So it's just under 7,000 square foot for both levels. And judging by what prices we're doing right now for, I think 384 is for the fire station, Branchwood Fire Station, which we're still cutting those prices, comes up to about 2.7. So you remember in phase one's guaranteed maximum price, it included infrastructure for all 4 phases. So you gotta remember, when we're putting in new infrastructure, you gotta tie in everything together while you're putting one thing. So there's a lot of things that was in phase 1 that's in phase 2 and phase 3 and 4. So the budget number will kind of adjust.
One little subtlety I might mention is the lease that CDS has and the building inspectors have, you know, over at the shopping center that has Table Bella. Used to say it had it. Anyway, those leases run out November 30 of this year. And when that happens, those people are gonna move over to our building, and they're gonna be, the fire department is gonna be in their new location. So those folks in CDS and building inspector are gonna be where the fire used to be, the fire living quarters. They're gonna have offices there. So we won't have any more lease payments anymore.
We'll take the train room over to the back portion of the fire station. We'll still be, administration will still be in the
Well,
front section.
it's not super
They'll
high
take
right
it
now,
back.
but it was gonna double. And the good news is landlord has people to take over every bit of it.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. They can't wait for us to leave. So they can charge more rent than the next guy.
But that number's just a guesstimation. It could be more, it could be less. I don't know. Judging by the $400 a square foot for a commercial building right now, it puts it at the 2.7 million for that second phase.
Well, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, with that, I think we can adjourn, and we'll see you next Monday. Thank you. We've got a record number of discussion items, right?
That was a record number of discussion items.
Bye.